Letters in the mail. Almost everybody likes to receive letters. And perhaps nobody in Stillwater liked to get letters more than Ray Buffin. But unfortunately Ray received fewer letters in his box at the post office than anybody else. Guy Hodge and Ralph Barnhill were two young men in town who liked to play jokes on people. But they never meant to harm anyone. One afternoon they decided to play a joke on Ray Buffin. Their plan was to ask a girl in town to send Ray a love letter without signing it, because they wanted it to be in feminine handwriting, and then tell everybody in the post office to watch Ray read the letter. Then somebody was to ask Ray if he had received a love letter from a girl. After that, somebody was to snatch the letter out of his hand and read it aloud. They bought blue writing paper and went round the corner to the office of the telephone company where Grace Brooks worked as a night telephone operator. Grace was pretty, though not very young. She had begun working for the company many years ago, after she had finished school. She had remained unmarried all those years. And because she worked at night and slept in the daytime, it was very difficult for her to find a husband. At first, after Guy and Ralph had explained to her what they wanted to do and had asked her to write the letter to Ray, Grace refused to do so. "Now, be a good girl, Grace. Do us a favor and write the letter." Suddenly she turned away. She didn't want the young men to see her crying. She remembered the time she had become acquainted with Ray. Ray wanted to marry her. But she had just finished school then and had started to work for the telephone company. She was very young then and did not want to marry anybody. Time passed. During all those years she had seen Ray a few times, but only a polite word had passed between them, and each time he looked sadder and sadder. Finally she agreed to write the letter for Guy and Ralph and said that she would send it in the morning. After they had left the telephone office, Grace thought about Ray and cried. Late at night she wrote the letter. The next day Guy and Ralph were in the post office at 4 o'clock. By that time there was a large crowd in the post office. When Ray came in and saw a letter in the box, he looked at it in surprise. He couldn't believe his eyes. He opened the box, took out the blue envelope and went to the corner of the room to read it. When he had finished he behaved as if he were mad. He smiled happily and ran out the room before Guy and Ralph had time to say anything to stop him. Ray hurried round the corner to the telephone company's office. When Guy and Ralph ran into the room where Grace worked, they saw Ray Buffin standing near the jury with the widest and happiest smile they had ever seen on his face. It was clear Ray and Grace had not spoken a word yet, they just stood in silence, too happy to worry about Guy and Ralph watching them.